So given your past jobs in the corporation world, what triggered you to leave the corporate sector and pursue like the non-profit sector?
I think I came into the non-profit world quite by chance because I was always a big corporate girl, and I really loved being in the corporate world, working with a big organization that had a lot of cachet. I liked the toys, I liked the expense accounts, and then it was in the US when I switched jobs, and then you have to apply for a visa again. Then what happened was you have to apply for a visa, and in that meantime you cannot work. So I thought I'd go crazy, not working for 4 months. So what I did was I applied to non-profits and offered to help with PR and comms because that was my background. And if you know anything about non-profits, you know that they are more than happy when people volunteer. So they all said, yes, please. And so I started working with 3 different non-profits. And after 2 months, one of them offered me a job. And they said, we don't have any specific role, but you can write your own job spec and start. So I thought, okay, great, that sounds fantastic. But I didn't really think I would stay. I thought, well, this would be just something for me to do in the meantime. And then after that, it turned out to be the best 2 years that I ever had, both professionally and personally. And so that's how I got hooked, became quite addictive.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, but of course there have been some sacrifices, right? Leaving the corporate world behind, like especially in terms of monetary returns. So, what are the rewards that you reaped from joining the sector?
Yes, there are plenty of sacrifices, but I think there are many things that compensate in the non-profit world. And one, everybody will tell you that it's very meaningful work because you can see the benefits that you make, how much you're helping someone in very real time. And it's very, very rewarding. It's priceless. It's hard to describe. So that's fantastic. I think second thing really for me is the the sense of personal growth, because in a non-profit you don't have a lot of resources, you don't have a lot of money, so you can do everything. So I found that when I was in a non-profit, I was taking on HR, I was recruiting, I was doing fundraising, I was talking to the media, and if you're really open to learning, that's a fantastic opportunity. So there's a lot of there's a lot of chances to grow, to learn, to meet a lot of new people who were teaching me as much as I was helping them.
That's good. So, especially with regards to AIDA, what are the touching moments you encountered that made you feel that championing AIDA was the right choice?
I think one of the things that every time gets me when I meet a new student on a Sunday is how little they have compared to how much I have and how much I take for granted. So we take a good education for granted. We say food on the table, being able to travel anywhere we want, picking any job. And then I come across a student who has nothing compared to what I have, and she's still so grateful to be there, to have the opportunity to learn. This is her day off, and she's worked 24/7 for 6 days a week, but she takes that one day to come and learn so that she can improve herself. And so when you come across something like that, you think, wow, I'm incredibly privileged. And all the success stories that you hear from them are really because of their own hard work. They have had no chances, no one's given them a lucky break, but just because they're so determined, they have now got like small businesses, small cafes, a bookshop. One has got a coffee plantation. One, is running a pig farm. One has got 5 cows. And it's incredible to see that, the small things that you do make such a big difference. So it's very inspiring.
Well, that's really good. So, what skill sets have you applied from your background and past jobs that enabled you to run AIDA effectively?
I think that the past skill sets from the corporate world, what I learned really was the importance of measurement. You have to be very disciplined in the corporate world because everything is measured. When I was in a PR company, every 15 minutes had to be accounted for because you build the client. And so you learn a certain discipline, you learn a certain rigor because you cannot waste time. Everything has to be accounted for. And if you're not making money for the company, then you are a cost. So when I came to AIDA, they were very good at measuring impact, but I realized there was many things that we could measure more. So for example, last year we started a student satisfaction survey. We also started a mentor satisfaction survey. And we started measuring everything. In terms of fundraising, is it worth the ROI? When we do this particular flyer, what is the return? So we've got a lot more clever for how we spend money, and I think that's really important to donors.
So, also you mentioned having worked in the US, right? As
Yes.
well as the UK, prior to your Make-A-Wish post. So there must have been quite a diverse cultural change, right? And how did you adapt and learn from working overseas that enhanced your work today?
I think working overseas, you have the benefit of seeing things very differently. You have different perspectives. You learn how different people do things. You get a more global perspective. But I was able to take some of the things that I saw in the US, for example, how they run non-profits or how they run corporates, and bring it back to Singapore. So I think I've benefited from both. Being Singaporean, you also know the nuances of working in a non-profit here. There's certain things that will work in the US but don't work here. So it's been a nice blend to be able to see the bigger picture, but also put it into an Asian context.
Right, but what is it about Houston that is really different from Singapore?
Houston is very different in the sense that the non-profit sector is very much more well-developed in the sense that the people have a lot of funds and they're very happy to support charity. So Houston is a big oil town, so there's a lot of public support, public funds that they will channel to non-profits. It's a much bigger pool. Whereas in Singapore, it's much smaller. And there's over 200 non-profits who are very worthy, all who are doing good work. So you're kind of all competing for the same small pool of donors, but also volunteers. So that, I think, is the constraint.
I see. So, your last post was the CEO of Make-A-Wish. So, and you joined Aida last January, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, did you face any difficulties transitioning to your current post?
Some things were the same in the sense that we're both smaller non-profits. But I think the difference with Aida is that we are totally dependent on volunteers because the volunteers run the classes. So on a Sunday, we have about 350 to 400 students on campus, and the classes are run by 45 to 60 mentors, volunteers, we call them mentors. So without these mentors, the classes would not run. So really, here at Aida, I've learned how do you engage a mentor? In Make-A-Wish, you do a wish and it's done. But here, the mentor adopts a student for 9 months. So how do you make a busy working professional adopt a batch of students for 9 months on a Sunday morning, which is very precious, come all the way to Dover? What makes them do it? So you really have to understand their motivation, how to engage them. So I think that's one thing that I really had to learn very quickly, because otherwise you would lose your mentor base. Excuse me. Also, I think Aida is much smaller than Make-A-Wish, so it's again being very creative with the very limited budget that we have. But you learn prioritization skills. There's so many things you can do, so many things you want to do. But what are the things that you have to do, the top 5 things that will make the most difference and help the organization grow at this point? What are the things that you can make medium term? What are the things that you can make long term?
I see. Okay, but you're speaking about constrained budget. So is it harder for Aida to get fundraising? I mean, I understand that one of your partners are Barclays, right?
Yes.
So do you think it's going to be difficult going forward to get more partners and more fundraising?
It's yes and no. I think it's difficult because, quite frankly, Aida is not, can I say this, it's not a sexy cause. Everybody understands sick children. Everybody wants to help the elderly because you know it, you can identify with it. But sometimes it's hard to understand, why should I help someone who is going back to their home country in the Philippines? Why not help causes that are more focused here? So that is, I think, trying to convince people Also, the thinking is that, well, I want my helper to be here. I want her to be here for the next 12 years and help my children grow up. I don't want to give her the skills so that she can go home earlier. So that's that kind of mindset that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but how would you want to change the mindset of the employers? Because you speak of them being reluctant for them to be more independent.
Yeah. I think what I would say to employers really is, if that was your mother, if that was your sister, would you want them to be away for 12 years? Would you want them to to have no choice but to be a foreign domestic worker? The answer is probably no. Nobody chooses to leave their country and their family for such a long time, voluntarily. No mother wants to leave their child for such a long time. So, why would anyone do it? So that's my message to them. If that was your mother, wouldn't you want her the chance to have a better life?
Yeah, I agree. So, what's your view on AIDA as a transformational platform for individuals and its impact on society? I mean, you mentioned that it helps foreign domestic workers, but how do you feel that this would help society?
I think the bigger picture really is that, because we are successful, because we are fortunate, it therefore is our duty to help other people. You have had the benefit of a very good education, so it's a very small thing to give back to someone who doesn't have it. And who knows, it's completely random why you should have been so lucky, why I should have been so lucky. It could have been you that had to be the foreign domestic worker. And so therefore I think that's our duty to give back. And it doesn't have to be a very big thing that you do. You can be a mentor, you can donate a laptop, you can help in a fundraising event. And you'll find that it's the very, very small things that can make such a big difference. So that's what I would say.
So what plans do you have for AIDA in the coming 2 years?
We're looking to scale up. This year we'll finish out with 750 new students. But in the context of Singapore, we have 218,000 foreign domestic workers. And by 2030, the ministry anticipates 300,000 foreign domestic workers. Now that is a lot of women out there whom we could help give the skills to, so that when they go home, they have a choice. With the skills, they have the power to change their circumstances. So that's our plan, to scale up and to give more women the opportunity to make their own choices.
Great, but how about in terms of branding and publicity? Are you planning to scale up on that as well?
For sure. I mean, I think that one of the biggest things really is to raise visibility, because we've been here 9 years, and I think that we're still not that well known as a non-profit organization. So there's plenty to do, and to raise awareness of what we do and how people can help and the impact that it's making. Excuse me. In terms of branding, it's a Singapore registered organization. It's probably one of the very few organizations in the world that does such a holistic program for foreign domestic workers. I really don't know where else you would see a combination of financial literacy plus computer skills plus leadership and entrepreneurial skills, all wrapped up in a special package. So it's something that we do well in Singapore, and we really want to tell everybody this is what we do. We already get a lot of requests for partnerships to set up affiliates in other parts of the world. So I think we're not ready yet, because we still need to put certain systems in place. It's still quite small. But once we get to do that, I think then we can take the program and enable more women to go through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, but how about educating employers? Because as you mentioned, there's not a lot of them could be reluctant and all that. Would you plan to put forth something in which that you could reach out to them and perhaps educate them on the benefits?
I think we're trying to do that all the time. We have a lot of outreach programs to not just the students, not just the volunteers, but also to employers. And really what we're trying to do is get them to come down to their campus and actually see how structured and safe the environment is. I think one of the biggest deterrence is that people think, well, I don't know what my helper is actually doing on a Sunday, so is she getting up to no good? Really, but when they come down to the campus, they can see that it's very supervised, it's very structured, and they can also see the impact that it's making on their students, on their helpers. Now the helper is setting up a business, she's learning how to communicate, she's learning financial literacy, which means she can actually help you. She can help you manage your household budget. I think they're slowly coming around, but it's a slow process because you're changing mindsets, and so it's a constant thing. We just need to keep doing it.
So, what challenges do you anticipate in achieving these goals that will be set in this coming 2 years to do so?
The challenge, I think, with it's the same for any non-profit. It's it's one, getting volunteers to continue. It's also getting funding because it's funding helps you continue with the program. So that's one of the things. And for us, fundraising is constant. It is, there is no let up because you constantly have to build up your partnerships. You have to put a lot of eggs in the basket so that if one corporate drops out for whatever reason, you are not at risk. So I think the funding will help us do many things. We'll run more programs. It will help us pay for rental of more classroom space. We will also be able to offer better salaries to staff so that it becomes a viable long-term career for people to work in IDA. So those are the primary goals for the next couple of years.
I see. Well, so just now you're mentioning you might want to open up to more countries, right? Because as Hong Kong and Taiwan, they too employ a lot of foreign domestic workers. So are you have any specific plans to reach out to them and get them to get on board with this?
I think for the moment we want to remain very much a Singaporean organization and help the situation in Singapore. We're very happy to share information with others, and we recently had a conference whereby we had organizations in Hong Kong, in other parts of the world who came and we collaborated. So if there's things that we're doing here that they can maybe take away and tweak, then we're happy for them to do that. The aim is not to go abroad right now, but as much as we can share information and experience, then sure, we're happy to do that. Why reinvent the wheel? If we've done it, then we're happy to share it with you, and if you've done it, then we obviously want to learn from you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, okay, just a quick question. Do you think that leaders are born or made?
Well, that's a $65,000 question, right? I think management experts have been debating this question for a long time. So I don't know that I have the answer to it, but I think there's certain things that leaders do that everybody can learn. And then whether you become a leader or not, you will become a better professional and you become a better person. I think for one, if I think about the leaders that I've worked with, they listen very well. They ask a lot of questions, but they're also willing to listen, which is quite hard to do sometimes because you always think you know the answer. So I think listening is a very underrated skill that can take you so far. Also, I think leaders, are quite decisive. So they collect the information, but then they're ready to act. And certainly I think from the leaders that I've worked with, those are traits that I've seen and I've admired and I try to emulate. But I don't know what the answer is.
Well, but do you think their traits are inborn, or do you think that it was due to a certain background that you had?
Maybe a bit of both. Because if you have the traits, but there is no context or nurture to bring that out, then you don't develop it. But on the other hand, you might have all these traits, vice versa. So I think it's a bit of both. You need to have something in your personality that gives you the strength of character, the resilience, the courage. But experience also gives you that. So I think it's been yes, right? And it's been I think smart enough to make the best of the learning opportunities that you have.
Right. All right. So I think that's it for this portion. So at this point, we just want to know a little bit more about AIDA and maybe you can tell us more about the current programs.
Okay. So AIDA is a Singapore registered non-profit organization. It's 9 years old. And it really started out under the auspices of UNIFEM, which is now UN Women. And so it was started as a program for financial literacy for foreign domestic workers in 2001. And then it became so successful that in 2006 they decided they would run it as their own program. And so IDA was formally launched there. Since we've been launched, we've impacted about 2,700 women. And we've had about 600 plus mentors. Our vision really is, our vision really is to is sustainable futures through financial education. And by that I mean we want to give women the skills and the knowledge so that when they go home, they have the power to make choices. They can change their circumstances because they have the skills to do so. And so we provide a series of programs. So we have financial literacy, which is primarily money management skills. So they learn things like saving, budgeting, planning for the future, which is a huge mindset change because when you're very poor, it's very hard to think long term. You live for today, really. So that is one big piece. And then we also do computer skills so that they can navigate the modern world. We do leadership skills, and by that I mean primarily communication skills so that they can make their voices heard. The foreign domestic workers are quite a voiceless group in society, and so they learn how to be a little bit more confident and voice an opinion, but graciously and assertively rather than aggressively. Can I just not use that? I didn't want to say that.
Okay.
I can just see somebody think, oh my god. Okay, so I'll just kind of start with the programs. So, okay, so our programs really, what we aim to do is to have a combination of financial literacy, plus leadership, plus computer skills and entrepreneurship skills. So in the financial literacy, it's really about money management skills, and we're looking to show students how to plan ahead and save and budget because when you're very poor, it's very hard to think long term. And so the students who come to IDA have no savings at all. Some of them have been here 6 years, 12 years, one student even 19 years, and has no savings. So she cannot go back to the country that she's come from because it's exactly the same. So savings is a big part of it. Computer skills because you have to learn how to navigate the modern world. Leadership skills so that they can make their voices heard because in Singapore they tend to be quite a voiceless society. And then in the second module they learn advanced leadership skills so that they learn how to communicate as business women, how to talk to suppliers, how to talk to customers, how to negotiate. And then they also learn how to write a business plan. So they learn things like cost risk analysis, profit and loss, how to spot a niche in the market. So it's quite serious stuff that they do. And then they write a business plan. And then once they have done that, they graduate. So each of these modules is 9 months, and so the total curriculum is 18 months. So when they do graduate, it's a very big achievement because some of them have not finished school. This is the first time they have gone through such a major course. And so it's a very heartwarming moment for them and for the employers to see this achievement. So that's the program. And then this year in January, we launched the Alumni Development Program because we realized that once they finished, they didn't have any ongoing support. So we wanted them to be able to continue with their business plans for when they go home and also to make investments to learn how to do that. So we have a 6-month program which we're doing. In addition to that, we also have this thing called Sunday Fun Days, and it's to give the student a bit of a break from their classes and also the opportunity to socialize. So we do things like Zumba, Bollywood dance, food and nutrition, basic English classes. And the students love these Sundays because it's their opportunity to socialize and interact in a safe space, in a very nice environment. Otherwise, the alternative is hanging out at a shopping mall on the sidewalk. So in as much as we provide classes, I think the other big benefit that IDA brings to the community is that there is a sense of place. The campus is their own. And they have a community where they meet their friends and other women who are doing the same job, who face the same challenges, and so they just chat, and it's a way to hang out with your friends. Really.
What do you think we can do to further extend this cause for AIDA? Like, what would you do to further develop it in the future?
I think constantly we are looking to make sure that the program is relevant. So these programs that we have, we constantly want to make sure that it meets the needs of the students. So we are doing a curriculum review shortly, just to make sure that it meets their needs, it's what they want, it's helpful to them. We are also doing satisfaction surveys to make sure that they are, we are addressing their needs. We're looking at volunteers. How can we engage with them better? How can we retain them? Because it takes a lot of time to train a mentor. And then, if they leave after 9 months, and it's perfectly understandable if you want to take a break after 9 months, but for the organization, you've already spent a lot of time training a mentor, and they have such a lot of knowledge by then. So if they decide to take a break, we lose a lot of organizational capital, so to speak. So we're looking at constantly how to keep them engaged, how to keep them close, and how to just really scale up.
Perhaps you could share there's some traits that you look out for in these mentors.
In the mentors, well, because this is volunteer, this is skill-based volunteering, the mentors already have a lot of the skills. So, for example, you already would be very literate in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So that's actually very easy for a mentor to do. Or you probably make presentations at work. So the leadership skills class is easy to do. Also, we do budgeting and saving, but it's not difficult. So a lot of our mentors have these skills, so they're happy to use the existing skills. I think the difference that makes a very good mentor for AIDA is understanding the cultural sensitivities, because you are dealing with a certain group of women. You're dealing with Filipinos, Indonesians, people from Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Indians. You have to understand the cultural context in which they come. So there's certain things you would say, certain things you wouldn't say, certain ways to deal with the issues. So it has to be someone who understands the cultural sensitivities. Also someone, I think, who is quite good with people and understanding sometimes you have to push a little bit, sometimes you have to give them some slack because they've had a very long week.
Yeah.
So I think it's someone who is genuinely people focused and who genuinely wants to help. And to the credit of our mentors, we have over 200 mentors, and they are absolutely brilliant. Is all I can say, because they do give their time, they do give their expertise very generously, and really without them it would be impossible to run the classes.
Right, but would you have any incentives put in place to retain these 200 volunteers?
Yeah. So last year we started doing more networking events, because one of the things we realized was that they were all professionals, so they really wanted to network. It's such a great way to network with other young professionals from, say, another bank, another financial institution. Perhaps many people that you not normally get to meet in the course of your work, but now you have the opportunity to do so, and you are bound by a common cause. So that's one thing. Also, what we found from our mentor survey is that they wanted the opportunity to share a lot of the best practice. So when you go into a class and you find that, well, maybe your students are not very responsive and they're very shy, and so you want to talk to another mentor and say, hey, is that your experience? What do you do? So we're trying to create this opportunity where mentors have informal networking sessions also on the campus, and they can share that best practice.
Well, that's pretty good. So just to wrap up this, maybe you could give us the viewers a final message or something that you want to convey about AIDA.
I think what I would say is that every woman deserves the chance to determine her own future, and really all you need to do is provide a very small opportunity, and the gains that somebody can make is so big, much more than you would realize. I personally always thought, well, what can one person do? It's not so much, I don't have that much time, but it really doesn't take that much time. Mentoring, for example, is one and a half hours one Sunday. is that really that big a call on your time to give somebody the same chance that you've had? So that's what I would say. To employers, I would say, consider your helper who makes your life safe and secure by looking after your children, by looking after your aged parents. Would you want your own family member to be in that situation for year after year after year? Probably not.
Okay, thank you.